From the outside, my marriage to Olivia seemed perfect and idyllic. Founded on family, love, and success, I was the cool, collected businessman who cherished trust and loyalty, while Olivia flourished in high society, attracting attention with her charisma. And recently, my parents were on vacation with our kids, Lily and Ethan, providing us a brief period of privacy, which seemed like the ideal chance to rekindle our relationship, or so I believed. I was shocked when Olivia proposed a trip, but she stated it would be beneficial for us. Her captivating smile gives us both an opportunity to unwind and remind us of what we already have. Her remarks were convincing, but I could tell she was a little impatient. Waiting for my unqualified consent, which I did, how could I not have trusted Olivia had always been my go-to option? And in addition to being correct that we should take a vacation, she took command of. She insisted on knowing exactly what we required when organizing the vacation, and I would handle whatever she said with a wave of her. Olivia had a way of taking charge, and I didn't argue with her well-groomed hand, giving the impression that she was helping me. But in reality, I was glad to have one less thing to worry about in the middle of the weeks before the trip were a blur of her joy and my quiet as a result of the turmoil of operating a business. She spent hours looking into resorts, scheduling spa treatments, and purchasing vacation attire in anticipation. I urged her to just nod along, letting her enthusiasm carry us both. I believed that this vacation was an attempt on her part to demonstrate her concern for our relationship. However, as the departure date neared, I couldn't get rid of the persistent impression that it wasn't something tangible, just Olivia's enthusiasm. Looked almost too practiced, and she insisted on managing every detail, which gave the impression that something was amiss. Uncharacteristically firm, but I ignored my discomfort that Olivia felt betrayed, and I wasn't the kind to question my wife. So when the time came, I observed her packing with such efficiency that, speaking of experience, "Are you certain you have?" all I asked in jest. She dismissed my remark with a light laugh, saying, "You've packed enough for a month." As we made our way to the airport, I gave myself permission to be ready, as you well aware, to unwind. Perhaps this was just what we needed, an opportunity to get back in touch without the distractions of everyday life. I gazed at Olivia, who was radiant and self-assured, and the flight went smoothly, and Olivia spent the majority of it reminding me why I fell in love with her in the first place. I didn't mind. I was happy to sit quietly as she periodically glanced at me while scrolling through her phone with a distracted smile. For once, I allowed myself to think that everything was as it seemed, as I imagined the serene beaches and days to come. As flawless as it appeared, Olivia's face glowed with delight when we arrived at the resort. "Isn't she gorgeous?" gushed, pointing to the opulent entrance and the gorgeous ocean view. I nodded in genuine admiration. The location was opulent and considerably more than I made my own decision, but I didn't mind spending money if it pleased Olivia. As we checked in, she leaned in to speak to me. "David, this is going to be incredible. Just wait for her to say it. It's low and conspiratorial." Felt comforting, and for the first time in a long time, I let my previous reservations to subside. Despite my optimism, I thought that this trip was a step in the right direction, the correct path, but I had no idea that the ideal beginning was only a skillfully constructed facade. The resort was gorgeous, the kind of place that was about to break in the most unexpected way. In high-end travel publications, the spacious lobby shone with lustrous marble floors and tall glass windows. With a pleasant drink in hand and a broad perspective of the azure ocean, I gave myself some time to take it all in. Perhaps Olivia was correct, and this trip could provide us with the necessary fresh start. I noticed them then, David. "Look who's here," Olivia said, waving. 3 women, Clara, Fiona, and Melissa, happily approached us with their excitement filled the room like a tidal wave, with their fashionable sunglasses perched atop their flawlessly combed hair. effusive greetings and high-pitched laughing, and I blinked in confusion. Olivia hadn't mentioned that anyone else would be joining us for what was intended to be a couple's vacation. Clara arrived first, embracing Olivia tightly. "Liv, you look fantastic," Melissa commented. "It's unbelievable that we're finally doing this. This place is amazing." Olivia will choose the best option once she scans the surrounding area with her eyes. Olivia, an outsider, stood there in what was obviously a prearranged gathering. She turned to face me with a radiant smile. "David, do you recall Clara, Fiona, and I bowed courteously? Melissa, even though I hardly recognized them from this is fantastic," Olivia added, referring to previous social gatherings that she had dragged. "Me too. We can all unwind together by putting her arm through mine. It will be a lot of fun." That's exactly what happened. The gathering tended to congregate in the lobby's cozy lounging area where refreshments and appetizers were served. I followed behind, still in shock that this wasn't a two-person journey since the women were already waiting. Olivia was in her element, the focal point of their hilarity as they settled in. I attempted to contribute, but the conversation was easily guided by my attention. Every effort to participate was either returned to Olivia or treated with courteous disinterest before the subtly obnoxious Japanese arrived. "David, you're incredibly fortunate that Olivia smiles slyly at everything Fiona says," Clara continued. "I don't know how you'd manage without her, let's be honest. Olivia is the true powerhouse? Isn't she managing the house, keeping up with us, and still spinning her drink?" I feigned a grin to hide the sting Olivia while they laughed, making "time for you" didn't stand up for me. Rather, she sported about it in a nonchalant way. "Someone has to keep things running," Olivia replied, referring to her successes and connections as though I were an afterthought. The women shouted as she raised her glass, saying, "David has his business, but I'm the glue that holds everything together." I sipped my drink silently as they raised their glasses in a faux toast, wondering how I had arrived here. And as the evening went on, the topic of conversation turned to expensive brands and lavish holidays, and social gatherings that I didn't care about. Olivia would occasionally look at me with a smile that was a mixture of amusement and, at one point, Melissa, I was unable to pinpoint if it was satisfaction or anything else. She spoke softly, but not too low, leaning closer. "You're really fortunate, Liv," she said. "Most guys would not pay for a journey like this, so naturally I would tighten my hold on my glass. Agreed to cover the cost of the vacation, but Olivia was uncomfortable hearing it presented in this manner. Chuckled lightly and dismissed the remark, demonstrating that David is aware of the significance of treating me well. "Don't you, sweetheart?" I nodded while maintaining a bland expression. Something changed inside. This wasn't a getaway for a couple. I felt more like an outsider when the gathering ended for the evening, because Olivia's stage and I were merely a prop. As we headed to the front desk to check, Olivia appeared more unaware than ever, engaging in animated conversation with Clara. The receptionist welcomed us to your parties and said good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Bennett. The receptionist handed me the word, "Rooms are ready party," and it hit me like a slap. I discovered something odd while looking through the keys. Every single room was linked to my credit card. "I apologize. I seemed to make a mistake." I spoke in a calm but stern tone. The receptionist approved one room and looked at Olivia, who entered the room without incident. "Oh, it's okay. David, I made all the arrangements. Believe me, it's simpler. This way." I then turned to Olivia. Instead of giving me an explanation, she gave me a single key that said, "Here's your room." Before I could reply, Fiona, she continued nonchalantly, "I'll be staying with Clara tonight. We just have so much to catch up on." The others laughed and said, "Don't take it personally, David. She needs her space." Olivia gave the remaining keys to her pals, who received them without question, and I felt my face heat. Melissa remarked, smiling at me, reserved rooms only for the elites. That was when I became aware of how completely I had been duped. This was Olivia's fully paid show, not a holiday for us. Enjoy your evening, I added, looking at her with an unreadable face. Putting the key in my pocket equally, I left the room without saying anything else. Lobby, and as I stepped outside into the refreshing evening air, I could still hear Olivia and her friends laughing. The resort looked breathtaking in the setting sun, but its splendor felt hollow now that it was tarnished by the sting of betrayal. I stood there for a while, taking slow breaths, trying to calm the tempest that was building inside of me. I wasn't the type to make a scene that I had never been in before, but this was disrespectful. Even when Olivia came back inside, I didn't think I would need clarity. Perhaps there had been a miscommunication. I went back to the front desk where the receptionist smiled politely at me and said, "Mr. Bennett, is there anything I can do to help?" "Hello. I saw that every room is charged to my payment card. Could you please verify the entire booking information for me?" After a brief pause, the receptionist typed, "Of course, sir. There are 4 rooms," on her keyboard. "Charged to the card, on file and held in your name. Is there a problem with?" I gritted my jaw and nodded slowly. "No problem. Thanks for charging me rooms." Verifying that Olivia hadn't just invited her, I moved away from my racing thoughts. The fact that she hadn't bothered to disclose that she had paid for her companion's full stay on this trip. It spoke a lot, so I attempted to relax as I walked to my designated room. Perhaps Olivia had planned to tell me, but had been waiting for the ideal opportunity. Or perhaps I was overreacting. Unlocked the door to my hotel room, a basic suite that was adequate but far less opulent than what I'd. During check-in, I had a glimpse of another element that caught me off guard. I dropped my luggage on the bed. I sat down and massaged my temples, because even though I already had an explanation, I needed to speak with Olivia to hear it. Sickening sense that I knew exactly how this conversation would proceed, so I